Good evening and welcome to the Conservation Commission meeting of Monday, November 1st. It's November already. It's going to be held in person and via Zoom according to Governor Baker's regulations. So with that, I'll start out. Do we have any public comments or just anything? All right. Can we get the August 23rd minutes?
I reviewed the August 23rd minutes, and I did not see any concerns or issues. I motion that we approve them, unless anybody else has any comments.
Nope.
I didn't see anything. Yeah.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? The 20th?
I reviewed the September 20th minutes, and there's just a couple of small comments. Under 28 Camp Road, the first sentence, engineer Craig Salikoski. It should be RIM from RIM Engineering after that name,
Okay.
because he did mention it. He came from RIM Engineering.
Yep. All right. Can we make that addition, Diana?
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
And the only other thing was, in the second paragraph, the last sentence, the last portion of the sentence. The silt sock from the previously approved work was site on site. It just doesn't sound right.
No.
I don't know if it should be still on site.
Yes, still on site. Yep.
Otherwise, with those two changes, I'd make a motion that we approve them, unless anybody else has any comments.
No, good.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? It's been 7:05. We have a continuation for 31 Water Street, file number 157610. Mr. Buckley.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. My name is Bill.
Before you start, excuse me. I don't know, a lot of you, I think, are new. Just want to give you a couple of guidelines. Mr. Buckley will make a presentation. Members of the commission can interrupt and ask questions. If you have questions, hang on to them. We'll get to them, but and all the questions will come to the chair. Okay, thank you.
Again, Mr. Bodie, thank you. My name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group. I'm here representing the applicant, Stephen Gungary, and also with me this evening is Frank Spillane from Spillane, who is the project attorney. So we had our last meeting on October 4th, and we went through the project in some detail. And then subsequent to that, we invited the commission and members and staff to have a site walk on the site. And I think that most everybody took advantage of that opportunity, which I think was very, very important. What we did for that site walk is we laid out the proposed building. We laid out the 25-foot no-touch zone. We laid out the 100-foot buffer zone. And we also put grade stakes on the building so that everybody can get a feel for what kind of earthwork will be taking place out there. And finally, we laid out the proposed driveway coming in off of Water Street. So what I hope this evening is that we, based on that sidewalk and our past discussion, that we'll be able to come up with some thoughts and ideas on how we can move forward to make this a better project. And one of the things I do want to point out, and as I pointed out at the last meeting, is that we are not requesting any waivers for this project. Seems to be some misconception out there that waivers are being requested. We're not asking for any waivers. We're not asking for any under the Wetlands Protection Act, and we're not asking for any under the local bylaw. There'll be no alteration of any resource areas. So the resource areas on this site are the pond, the bank, the bordering vegetated wetlands, the floodplain, and that's it. There is a waiver, and I misspoke. In the 25-foot local bylaw, we are asking for a waiver to allow a footpath so that the owner can create a footpath to access his dock. So that is a waiver of the local regulation. But other than that, we're not asking for any waivers under the local or state regulations. So unless there are questions, I'm really have nothing else to add at this point.
All right, I don't know where the sketch came from, but see there's an alternative sketch that, did it come from you to rotate the house?
No, I haven't done anything to this plan. There were 2 wetland flags that were moved, but they're not going to have any impact, or very minimal impact. They won't have any impact on the building. And we haven't done any alteration to it. And that was asked at some previous, I don't know who asked it, if it was a neighbor but that is not, we're not going to pivot the building 90 degrees.
Okay.
Bill, I have a quick question. So where the septic is laid out now, and I recognize this is not necessarily us, this is more Board of Health, but it could impact wetlands later on. Where the septic is located now, 50 years from now, if the septic has to be replaced, where's the room to put it in, given it's so close to all the boundaries
Sure.
now?
So I know it doesn't show it here, but I'll zoom up on this a little bit more. And it's not going to go here. Well, I doubt it's going to go here. We're going to be moving it further away. But, so you see the hatched area, that's the trench. And then next to the trench, we call that a reserve area. So what that means is during, if it ever has to be replaced, that is an area that's set aside for it to be put in. So you'd have to go in there, you'd dig out what's there, and then you replace it. Actually, you just saw that on a project on 30 on Mill Street, where we did Sam Weinfeld's. The septic system is basically in the same area as the old one, so we're digging out the old system and putting in a new one.
Okay.
So that's how it would go. And you'd come in from, just like you would normally in this area here, and dig it out and put it in.
Any other questions, comments?
Bill, when you were out with us the second day, you were thinking about changing the pitch and also how to address the snow storage area. And you were thinking some ideas that might be beneficial.
Yes, so let me just, my little scale here. So this driveway, this area right here, I think somebody was asking me about during the sidewalk. This is about 40 feet. It's actually 40, I think it's a little bit long, about 45 feet in width. And the question was, could we pull that back? And when I say pull it back this way. So could we pull it back? And then what we were talking about, I think, out there is I have this rain garden in this area here. And when I was looking at it, walking it and getting some input, what I think would be a better solution to this would be to pitch this back this way. Right now, it's pitched this way from up here, and it goes all the way down to here. So what I would do is not necessarily pick this up, but bring this down, because this is quite a fill through this area here. This is about a 3 or 4 foot, or actually 5 foot fill through this area here. That's that, when we walked in, it went down and then came back up. So this is that area. And what I was thinking is we could pitch this back put this water over here, so now it's in a natural low area for it to infiltrate. We can eliminate this rain garden here, we can cut this back, and now this gives us more room. This is a close point right here, and now what we can do is, this will give us room where we can put snow if it, during snowstorms, and we won't have to encroach on the 25. Excuse me, I'm sorry. In that area there. So I think that's what I think what we talked about out there was a thought, and I said, yes, we could definitely do that. So I think we could cut that back at least 10 feet.
But you haven't done it on a plan yet.
I haven't done anything on this plan. This is the same plan that we looked at that meeting. What I wanted to do was come in here and get input so I could go back and modify, and then come back again. I certainly don't expect it to be tonight.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
That he wanted to go back to see what
Yeah, comments were,
the calcs
yeah,
too.
okay. Jane, do you have any input?
Bill, just one quick question right now. The elevations that are on the drawing, those are as is? They're not modified for the plan, or?
So if you look at the orange, you see these orange things? This is the plan, that's the existing condition. And then what we do is this black, this is what we're proposing it to do. So this 249, for example, that's
Okay.
and then these other contours there. So in areas where there is no black, that typically means that there's no alteration in that area. So this is up in here, this is altered in here, but beyond that, it's not altered. This is not altered down here. This is not altered here. This is altered here, and this is where we were going to put a wall. There's a little wall there. I think I pointed it out in the site walk. So you can see along the edges, there's no change in the elevations and no alteration of it. There is clearing through here. There is some alteration up here near with the pool. That's why I wanted to put the grade on there so you can see, how much alteration has taken place. So you look at that pool, it's only a 2-foot alteration at most in that area there. It's not like it's a big, I'll give you an example of a really big alterations might be London Estates.
Your major ones are down at the driveway,
Yeah, because that's that hole
yeah.
that we have to get across. So we're going to be filling that area through there. The rest of the area, as I pointed out, as I was talking about at the last hearing, we set the house on the ridge. So we set it on that ridge so we can minimize the grading on it. I think when you saw it, you could see that we were successful in that. So there's not a lot of clearing, there's not a lot of, I won't say there's not a lot of clearing, but there's not a lot of filling, and there's not a lot of earthwork there beyond what's necessary to dig the foundation.
As you dig the foundation, are you going to be stockpiling the dirt, and where would that be?
Well, ideally, we would put it outside the 100-foot buffer zone. We could add stockpile areas to it if that becomes necessary. So I would say, because the septic isn't going to go here anymore, so we can use this area up here as a stockpile area, because this is the area of the foundation. This doesn't have a foundation, and this doesn't have a foundation. So the main house has the foundation, the garage doesn't have it, and this little, I don't know what you call it, little bedroom / not in-law apartment, because it doesn't have a kitchen, but that area that's on a slab as well.
Bill, the biggest concern I have is that majority of the house and the driveway is within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Right.
That's just hard for me to fathom, especially given the pristine nature of this land. Can't we, any way to get it out of there and move it forward? Why not put it where the existing house is?
The existing house is gonna be on a separate lot, and that will probably someday be another house. I understand your concern, I do. But I think that our design, we've met the interests of the act. We're going to recharge the groundwater from the roof. We've stayed away from the local bylaw, 25-foot no touch. We've minimized the grading. We're going to be moving the septic system away. We're going to be using a upgraded septic system so that the effluent going into the ground is going to be a fraction of the, dirty is a bad term, but the concentration is a fraction of what my house is, or probably most of your houses.
Was it a fast system?
It's a fast system. So I think we've recognized the fact that there is issues here, but we've done all the things necessary to protect the interests of the act.
Okay, I'm not sure I follow that, 'cause since you're within the 100-foot zone.
Well, the act doesn't protect the 100-foot zone. The act protects the resource areas. So the resource areas are the water.
But that's the reason for the 100-foot zone, is to protect the resource
The
area.
reason for the 100-foot zone is it requires us to file with the commission. So it doesn't, the buffer zone is not a protection zone. Some towns have it. Just like the 25-foot no touch has been turned into a protected zone. But it is not a resource area. It is an area that requires us to file. And that's what we've done.
But it requires you to file so that we can determine whether it's endangering the resources, right?
Yep, you have to determine whether or not the activities that we're proposing will impact the resource area, not the buffer zone. So again, I think we've laid it out pretty well. We're not filling in a floodplain. We're not touching the 25-foot no disturb. We're not touching the bordering vegetated wetland. So I'm not sure what activity that we're proposing would alter any of those resource areas. And we can move it, as we talked about, some of the areas like that, over there to the left, as you're looking at that map, we can move that. We'll move that over, and we have that little wall there that will allow us to move the wall over as well. So now that will be probably at least 35 feet off of the BVW. Instead of maybe, well, right now it's a little over 25.
And Bill, one of my favorite bugaboos, the pool, what kind of filtration system will that have, and where will it discharge?
This is one of those pools that has salt that it doesn't require flushing or anything like that, so I don't really know how it works, but it's not like the old diatomaceous earth or sand filters. And it's a small pool. It's like I don't know what it's called. It's a lap pool, so you'd be in there, and you can see on the back edge as you're looking at the plan, there's no deck around it. So you step into it, you do it, and then you get back out.
Bill, you mentioned that you're going to have a different type of erosion control grasses treatment in certain areas.
Yes,
Because it's so close to the steep slope,
yes.
the top of the slope, that is. You might want to just explain that again.
So those are, actually Jane would do a better job of explaining it than me. They're the grass on the northeast and west side of it will be what's the name of it? Jane, help me.
Black Beauty, Jonathan Green's Black Beauty Original Grass Seed,
Right.
which has deep roots. It does not, it's heat resistant, doesn't need a lot of watering. I have it at my house. It's not bad. So that's what that is. I do have a couple comments about what you did say about the bylaw and the regulation and the Wetlands Protection Act, though.
And on the south side, thank you. And on the south side, which is this area here, this will be just grass. So the front yard will be grass, but on the east, north, and west side, it will be that type of plantings. As Jane pointed out, it's designed for waterfront.
Is it mowed, or is it just like?
I mean, I have it, I just planted it this year in my house, up in, I have a house in Maine. And I cut that grass about every 3 weeks. And it's, probably don't even need to do it, but it doesn't grow very fast, does it?
Well, if you don't fertilize it and it doesn't rain forever, I think I've cut mine twice last year. This year it rained a lot, so we had to cut it more.
Yeah, I don't fertilize it, I just put in, because it's under pines, so I just, use lime. That's the only thing. I don't water it.
So,
Okay.
So as far, what?
just wanna,
You still asking?
almost got the impression that the septic system is being moved, and it's gonna
Yes.
get out of the buffer zone.
It's out of the buffer zone now, but it's going to be 150 feet away. So we're going to move it probably down in this area here. So this is the 150 line. It will be in this area down in here.
Oh, next to the driveway?
Yeah, it'll be farther away. We'll end up pumping to it, because the septic tank still has to be up in this area, so we'll pump it down the driveway, and it will go down in this area here. That's probably the size of it. You can see something like that. So it will be further away. It's outside the buffer zone now, and it'll be further away than we're showing right now.
And just one last question. Being that the size of the clearing and all the tree stumps, it's not recommended to bury the stumps, especially in this is such a critical piece of land and very porous, even though it may not be wet. But buried stumps also produce other underground pollutants that will travel in the sandy soil.
I agree with you, and I will put on this plan that there'll be no stump disposal on site. It has to be either ground or taken off site.
Jane, did you want to make some comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a clarification, a couple clarifications. The Wetlands Protection Act does not protect resource areas. I usually explain that it's basically the bare minimum protection of wetlands, which is why we have a bylaw. It protects the interests of the act, and there are 8 interests, or is it 9? Which have to do with stormwater and erosion control and flood damage prevention and that kind of thing. So it doesn't even protect the resource areas. You can actually fill in 5,000 square feet of water and vegetated wetland if you replicate it. Same with floodplain. Which is why so this project, you're right, this project does comply with the Wetlands Protection Act. But under the bylaw, which towns adopt in order to protect wetlands a little bit better, under the bylaw, the 25-foot no activity zone is considered to be like a resource area. But also, one of the things I would like to point out in the regulations has to do with Section 8 Wetland Values and Performance Standards, D, no net loss policy, and it talks about the rationale for it, sequence to prevent wetland loss, avoidance, minimization, mitigation. So you should probably speak to those, because the applicant bears the burden of, overcoming certain presumptions. And where's it going with that? Basically, that talks about avoidance, minimization, and mitigation. So you should check those out, and because the state, you're right, the state, it complies with the state's requirements. but we have a bylaw that protects more.
Okay, thank you.
Okey-doke.
Okay. I know we've received at least 3 letters. Would you like to comment? You've received all 3, haven't you, Mr. Buckley?
Yeah, since they came in about 10 minutes ago. Jane, very nicely, thank you for forwarding it to us. I mean, if there's any specific items in there that you would like us to address that are pertain to the Wetlands Protection Act, we'd be glad to do so.
Bill, the one other comment I had about the general plan, and you're right, you've kept the corners like within the 25-foot, but I know when we walked and looking where the stakes were, where the actual physical property is going to be is very close in a couple of spots, like in the east side, like it gets a little close over there, and then we're going to cut back on the driveway, but then on the south east side as well, well, actually, you're building up over there, but where the corners come close in some of the spots there, obviously, there's probably going to be either grass or people are going to need a grass to traverse around, so just by having the property there, by creating livable conditions around your property, they're going to be encroaching right on, I can see it encroaching right onto the 25-foot over time. I guess so in the general spirit of that, I mean, if there's any way to sort of shrink this a little bit, to give it a little bit more of a buffer, instead of coming so close, like you guys are right up against the edge on some of these spots. That was my one overall comment about the way it is. I understand what the owner's trying to do, and that, trying to take full advantage of it.
You're thinking right
Right
here?
there, yeah, and then where the
And then
guest
over
house
here?
is over there, yeah, exactly. And the driveway, you're talking about shaving the driveway off already, so that's great.
Yeah.
If you get rid of the rain garden, you don't have to worry about the snow going in the rain garden, that's also a good thing, and directing the flow, that's good. But like where the guest house is, that's starting to get in there. Like, I'm imagining I'm a property owner, I'm gonna put in gardens around there, right? You might put plantings, then you're gonna be, easily starting to encroach on the 25-foot without even realizing it. Or maybe they would realize it, I don't know, so,
Or without us knowing it.
yeah.
Well,
Okay, thank you.
I'll bring up one idea. As we all saw, the trees are very tall and very open underneath. There's very little shrubbery and other things like that. As the sun hits the easterly side of the trees and penetrates down to the water, there's definitely going to be an impact on the edge of the pond along that side. What's about the possibility of getting some plantings in there that could promote a little more growth starting up? It'll take forever, but get some of that growth at the ground level and start getting the evergreen type of situation or whatever to break up that heat and the excessive sun that's going to come in right underneath those trees.
So the sun is probably, right, this is north is up. So the sun's gonna be like this, I guess. It's gonna rise over here, and it's gonna come around, and it's gonna set over there approximately, southeast, southwest. So what area are you thinking of, down in this area here?
Along where you're clearing out, there all the way to beyond the pool. Because that's where the sun is going to have its most influence on getting through underneath the trees into the water.
So what kind of plantings are you thinking of?
That's something that I think we would leave up to you.
But I mean, are you talking about bushes? Are you talking about, you said evergreens, you mean like
Or
evergreen
you
trees?
you could try, regular white pines or any type of native spruces. Do we have any native
But
spruces?
so right now, I mean, are you looking at go underneath the current canopy?
Right, along
So-
the edge. But the thing is, as they grow, it'll take that sun heat shine out of the atmosphere underneath the trees into the water. Eventually, it's going to take a while for those trees to grow. But there's no understory in
Right,
that area.
right.
It's wide open.
Right, no, I get that. But
And
is it
that's the worst side, where the sun will go right down that slope.
in the afternoon?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the afternoon, the sun will be over here, right?
Yeah, it's gonna come in from the-
Southwest.
Come in from the northwest.
So this would be the sun, right? Southwest, and the southwest sky, and it's going this way. So I'm
So the concern is on the eastern shore. that
Over
body of
here.
water there, right? So there's gonna be a lot more sunlight getting in there? In the eastern side of the, coming under like, as the sun starts getting lower, right? All those trees that were there are gone, so there's gonna be a lot more sunlight filtering in. Will it heat up more? Will it create more algae? Will it, is there something to do to try to keep, because it's nice and clear now, right? It's not, there's no, there's no lilies in there, there's nothing like that warm water, like really warm water kind of grows in. So I think what David's saying, is there a way to sort of try to get a jump start on keeping well, two things, keeping the invasives out, which is gonna happen anyway, and then also trying to create some sort of a shield to sort of shelter that side from the sun later on, so like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's not overgrown. Am I right with that? Is that what you were thinking? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Because the buffer zones are also important in protecting the water resources and, the bank, but the actual water resource itself. In this case here, this 1 acre plus opening, it's gonna make it wide open for the sun to go penetrating onto that eastern shoreline. Because as we walked it, there's nobody to stop it, nothing to stop
Right,
it.
right. And then, yeah, so with the trees being pulled out, there's nothing to block that from the west.
And that's another reason why the buffer zone is important to these other resources. In this case here, there's a direct correlation.
Can I say something here? We have a buffer zone science book that was put together by the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions. It's a guidebook to buffer zones and their importance in the studies that have been done on them, so the commission can make science-based findings under their bylaw and the state act. And it speaks to how important they are for different things, including, oh, now I just lost my little section here. It has to do with, for lakes and ponds, for example, they act as natural filters that absorb and trap nutrients, toxic pollutants, bacteria, sediment, organic material, and debris before it enters a resource area. Vegetated buffer strips work by slowing the velocity of surface flow, which has an effect on allowing sediment to drop out, blah, 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 blah. Buffer zones including, let's see, they're widely studied, and they, for their ability to remove nitrogen, phosphorus, sediment, coliform bacteria, and other pollutants. It speaks to shade and that kind of thing. Inputs of nutrient and phosphorus pollution called nutrient loading cause eutrophication, which can lead to algal blooms in water. And it goes on from there. So, I mean, this is all about the science of buffer zones. There have been an awful lot of studies, and this isn't just saying you should have a wider buffer zone. This buffer zone here is actually pretty perfect, except I don't understand why there isn't a lot of shrubs under the north side, because that's the perfect place for high bush blueberries to grow. And there are quite a few in many places. But also, if you cut down a lot of these trees, they're not going to have their little buddies to keep them up anymore, and the winds can knock them over. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of things to consider that could be a huge headache for this person in the future. I mean, he's going to be or whoever is going to be responsible for 1,200 feet of shoreline. And the shoreline is critical. As a matter of fact, since all you people live on the water, this is a perfect opportunity for education. Because a lot of us don't realize how important a buffer zone is. And nobody in their right mind who lives in the water is going to want to pollute their own water. So that's why I try to get as much information as I can about these studies and then put it on the website and pass it out to you. Actually, this is my favorite. It's in a nutshell. Take one and pass it on. Okay, I've said my spiel.
Bill, if you're going to move the septic tank, would you consider bringing in that line of limit of clearing closer to the house? You still have lawn all the way around the house from what it looks like.
Yeah, we'll look at that. I don't think he's married to a lot of,
Maybe even, round it off on the corner on the, what is that?
And also, Bill, buffer zones can be beautiful, especially that front area there where you say you're going to put that grass. We have a bank of hay-scented fern growing at the Lane Learning Center because we're growing a lot of native plants so that people can see that they're actually nice. And they make a beautiful, green, lush bank, and you don't even have to do anything. So if you might want to consider something like that, or low bush blueberries. Can't
Well,
run
well,
barefoot
definitely.
through them
and
necessarily.
I will seek out your guidance as we're
I'd
moving forward
appreciate
on
that.
this. We can
Yeah,
talk about some of these things.
because it's all about net environmental benefit and protecting the resources that are there. Water quality sustainability is something I heard quoted recently, and I liked it.
And one other request, if I may. What's the purpose of the turnaround? Is that really necessary to put a tire or?
I mean, down the cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fire department wants that.
Oh, okay.
Is it
The
gonna
fire
be-
department wants it,
Is it
okay.
gonna be paved or just
Paved.
the whole cul-de-sac?
No,
No,
just
that
this
turnaround
little
right there.
turnout.
Oh,
The
okay.
planning board is, we're pretty sure they're gonna grant the waivers so that we don't have to build a 20-foot road with sidewalks and an 85-foot diameter cul-de-sac. This is what we've requested, which is basically a 12-foot driveway all the way through. So they have jurisdiction up to this point right here.
Okay.
And then,
Are they going to, even though there's no cul-de-sac there, are they going to require you to grade that?
yes. Yep, it's already graded. I mean, if you look at the plan, it's actually a pretty, it's not really steep, but it's a good.
I mean the cul-de-sac itself.
No. Again, look at see, these are the dash lines. This is the heavy line. So you can see there's very little activity outside. Well, down here, we're probably going 10 feet beyond the pavement to grade. But
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
not a whole lot of grading
No,
there.
I'm just asking, if they haven't made you grade those before, even though it's
No.
on paper, that's,
No.
okay.
No, they're, as a matter of
were
fact, they used to require, I forget what it was, but the commission on one of these projects, I think it was Fairway Lane, asked the planning board to cut it back to 12 feet, and they said, fine. So it's actually as small as you can get. 12 feet
Right.
is the width of a highway lane, if you're wondering.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from up here right now?
Yeah, so the path to the dock, which there's no dock there right now, obviously.
No.
That is a pretty steep grade down to the water. And I can understand why somebody wants it there, but I'm just, the commission walked around, it's like there's other areas that don't have the same pitch. Obviously, the drop is gonna be the same no matter where we are.
Jeff, I think this is about the flattest area around the outside. That's why we marked it out so you guys can look at it. So if you go around like the edge here, so you get that big long run, and just like you said, the drop is the drop. But now we've got this bigger run. You can see along here how it's all steep, 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 steep. It gets a little less steep out here, but it's not any worse. And then I'd have to, why would you put a dock over here? Now I have to clear all of this area. And then out here, you can see this is all wetland. Here's the edge of the water. So I don't know. I think that's a good spot. It wasn't arbitrarily chosen. We looked at it, we were out there and said, oh, this is a nice, it makes a nice turn. Actually, Jane pointed out the fact that you don't want a straight shot because you don't want the water shooting down. So, we can move it, but I do think it's a good spot.
How about reducing the width to like 3 feet?
I mean, we could do that, but I mean, you gotta schlep you're still carrying a canoe or a kayak down there, so
What is the surface, the material for the
I'm
path?
just showing as crushed stone.
Stone, okay.
What about putting in a couple water bars?
Do that.
And I also noticed that you mentioned you want a variance from the 25-foot no disturb zone, but in this plan, you're actually filling in or doing something to bordering vegetated wetlands, which you did not mention. Is that dock going to be free-floating? Or is that dock actually sitting on
I
bordering
think
vegetated
it's a
wetlands?
floating dock. It's a floating dock, it just sits out there.
But you show what I'm saying is, based on this plan, it looks like part of the path is going to be filling in bordering vegetated wetlands, and part of the dock is going to be over it.
Well, if it does, it's wrong. I mean, we'll pull it back. No, we're not gonna fill any wetlands. We're not even changing the grade in that area. You can see there's no grade change. We're just going to dig it out and put in a crushed stone path. So, you just make sure we move that back and put a note that there be no alteration.
So you're going to have the crushed stone path go into the bordering vegetated wetlands, even
No.
though it's small, do you?
No, we won't. We won't. I'll make sure that we don't. I'll note it and I'll pull it back. So that's not the, that's
So you'll
not
probably
the,
have something like a dock that's above it. Not a dock, but,
yeah, a plank,
Way over.
walkway.
Yeah.
something.
So then, I guess what you're saying is, to prevent wetland loss, a permit will be issued for the least environmentally damaging practicable alternative. Minimization, especially in that 25 no activity zone, making it narrower, the path. That's more than enough room to get through there. Kayaks are pretty narrow.
Okay.
You have one in the front and one in the back.
If that's what you want, we'll make it 3 feet.
Water bars do work, because when we build our trails and everything like that,
Yeah, I've seen them all.
this
Water
here,
trails.
they're easier to install in something like this than it is out in the woods.
Okay. Anyone from the audience have any questions? Comments? Come up and use the mic, please, since we're on video and Zoom and all that good stuff.
Where are the cameras?
You're on, you're on television.
Lovely. Hi, I'm Paul Hainsworth, and I'm at 10 Woodland Road. I guess I have some comments, and can be, if it's Jeopardy, I can phrase them in the form of a question. But
Sure.
starting off, the no variances are required comment was for the Conservation Commission, except for the path. But I think there aren't necessarily variances, but there are exceptions to what you would normally do for this property. And in the letter that, or just the notes that I put together, all these exceptions, the 100-foot buffer zone, these are all created by this plan. There's no hardship here. On the Mill Street property, the septic failed, and the homeowner, the landowner there, would have faced a lot of undue financial hardship to cut into ledge to make a new leaching field. There was a good reason to give a variance there, or to make exceptions to what you would normally do. And I just don't see that for this property. The 100-foot buffer zone, I think that the Conservation Commission has discretion over what goes on in that entire buffer zone. And in this case, if the house went sideways, you could build something which would allow that 100-foot buffer zone to exist. What I look at is, if we talk about, what would the resource area, how would that be altered? Well, if you take down every tree, clear cut that peninsula, it just seems unfathomable to say that that would not affect the resource zone around it. All the trees are gone. The sun, there's sun everywhere that there wasn't before. It just this is not a problem, this is a problem of the applicant's own creation. It's not something that I believe that the Conservation Commission should just say, okay, go ahead, clear cut the peninsula, you've left 25 feet. You look at the, talking about new plantings, special grass, erosion control. Is that going to be there in 5 years or 10 years? My lawn's not going to be there in things change. And those plantings could go very easily. So I feel that those are there's strangely specific little items that don't look at the bigger picture of this is why are we letting, or considering letting this pristine environmental area be just clear cut except for 25 feet around the edge on a very steep banked and porous soil that we would suspect without tree roots and everything is probably going to slide into, there's not, I feel like 15, 20 years down the road, I'm going to be looking back at this and saying, how did this happen if the project is allowed to go forward? There's plenty of room on this piece of land to build a beautiful new house and to have a septic system that conforms. All of that is possible. There's the lack of conformity is just on the plan. You can build a new house that fully conforms with the septic. How you're going to fit 2 septics on this land is beyond me that are going to conform for the house in front and the other one if you move that septic back. It's just beyond me. I don't know how that would happen.
Well,
So
just-
that's those are my comments on it. I don't believe that this has met the interests of the Conservation Act. I mean, I was looking at the part 8N of the, and one of them is protect the aesthetic and scenic values. That's the Foxborough bylaw. On that, even on that, I can testify that you're going to look across from the association's beach where we see beautiful trees and tall pines. We're not going to see that anymore. So, but that's one aspect of it. But to me, it seems like that 100-foot zone, there's no reason to allow development within that. And that's the macro view. I'm not looking at grasses and things like that. I'm just feeling like that this is not an appropriate project to grant exceptions from what you normally would allow in such an area. Maybe they're not called variants, but they're certainly exceptions to what I think would normally be allowed for such a really a pristine and nice peninsula with all the issues that certainly could be. And I expect if you clear cut the peninsula, you'd have some great negative effects on the protected areas. So I think that's my point. I did submit a written comments. I just sort of wanted to go talk about a couple of things there.
Okay.
So that's all for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, we have no control over the septic systems. That's the
Correct.
Board of Health.
Yep.
That's not we ask questions about it, but we have no control over that, so
Yes, I
we have our
understand that.
limits.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
Mr. Bodie, thank you. I'd like to address some of the points that were made,
Sure.
just to clear things up. First of all, we're not clear-cutting the peninsula. This is about 93, the lot itself is about 96,000 square feet. We're clearing about 23,000 square feet of work within the area. So it's not clear-cutting. We're not
I
working, we're
misspoke.
not.
I meant the end
Did you
of the
mi-
word.
I certainly didn't interrupt you, sir.
Sorry.
We're not working in the bank. There's no work on the bank. Bank is a term that has a specific meaning, and there's no activity taking place in the bank. So those are just 2 items that I just thought would be important to clear up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I meant the end of the peninsula, not the whole thing.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Just another, Bill, by putting additional vegetation underneath on the east bank, it'll also reduce the impact of the rings coming down, crashing down onto the duff, which is there, which will benefit in not only cooling it, but keep it from really pounding away at that. So with Jane's help, and maybe someone that could come up with a planting plan in that sandy soil, maybe you could come up with effective, it's not a restoration, but a way of keeping the area,
Right.
keeping the rest of
enhance
that
it.
area to protect the water resource in the
Yes.
bank.
I understand. I didn't really understand what you were saying at the beginning, but I do think I understand it now, and I will, if there, it seems like there's no more comments, but if there are, great. But I certainly appreciate all the comments tonight, comments we received by letters, and we'll definitely take them all seriously. And I will go back now, and I'll sit with Jane, and she's the professional staff, and we'll work with her on discussing some modifications, and then come back and talk to the commission again.
Bill, Dave just jogged my memory for the patio. Is that, what's the surface on that? Is that impervious?
Yes, yes.
Based on the grade is, again, is that, I'm assuming that's gonna be flat versus graded one way or another. Normally, people want them flat so things don't roll off and it's comfortable. Just,
Yeah,
what's to prevent, where's the water going off of that?
it will pitch to, it's gonna pitch toward the lake.
Right, so is there something we can do, again,
Yes.
to buffer that so it
Yeah.
doesn't pitch off?
Well,
and
like
go
a
out?
permeable, how about a permeable paver? I mean, I think permeable pavers are worthless when it comes to roadways and driveways, but I think they're very appropriate for patios because you can maintain them. So I think that's a great idea.
I was thinking that, like if you will, a rain garden or something right at that, on the edge there, to help with that and not just, but that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I got it.
As was suggested at another site in town, not too long ago, on the Deposit, for a swimming pool.
Was that one of mine?
It was one of Rich's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jane?
I have one more question.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
When you're talking about cutting of the peninsula, you are proposing to alter 23,000 square feet of buffer zone,
Right.
but the interior portion is going to be cut as well. So how much altogether would be cut? What is the square footage?
Let's see.
What do you mean by the interior portion, Gene?
With the houses.
Yes, well, in the notice of intent, he wrote, proposed buffer zone alterations are 23,336 plus or minus.
Right, yeah, no, I remember.
So the little area that is upland,
So
that's
the area-
proposed to be cleared, and could be cleared without coming into anyone's
About another
jurisdiction.
3,500 square feet, about. I'm
About
just scaling it
3,500?
right here.
Okay.
Most of the site is within 100 feet, except for that piece down the middle, so.
Right.
And we're saving a lot of that with the limited clearing, which we might be able to bring that back to.
Yes,
Okay.
but there's no saying
Okay,
it
got
couldn't
it.
be cleared in the future either.
True, you're right.
Yeah, so, to their point, no, you're not clear cutting the whole peninsula, but you're cutting a good deal of the end of it.
Jane, my question is, we have received 3 letters,
4.
4, okay, I think I've only seen 3.
You've seen them all. Or if you didn't check your emails.
I checked my email.
Someone today sent me something, and they said something about, would you like it early? And I said, yes, please. And they said, I don't know how many people have submitted, and I'm thinking, if we get a whole lot at the meeting, no one's going to be able to see them. So I said, why don't you tell people, if you know that they're going to submit one, to submit it soon? So that's why a couple more came in.
Okay.
So we got one on October 25th and 3 today. One was written yesterday.
Okay. I just think, is it appropriate to read those into the record since we're on TV?
I'm happy to read them into the record.
Okay.
I'll read them in order of date. Let's see. Okay.
One last question for me. I know there's one tree that's marked on the plan. I know it's on the big plan.
Oh, is that spike
so
for
where
survey?
Yeah, the spike.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any other trees that are being, that are, I mean, larger trees that are even though that are within, outside the 25-foot zone?
Reference for grading purposes.
Yeah.
I would, so when we did the sidewalk the other day, that was one of the things I was looking at. I like to, I was hoping I would get input on that. Oh, gee, can we save that tree?
Right.
I think there was one tree that might have been worth saving
Okay.
in front of the house, and everything else was pines.
Yep.
So, but
There
there
were
was
a lot
one
of different trees
hardwood.
there.
There was what?
There were a lot of different trees there.
We're
Maybe not
talking
in the
about-
center.
We're talking about in the clearing area there, the ones that could be saved, which are like on the edge or where there's no grading.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was thinking of. So
I wasn't
Right,
there for
that's
that.
what I was asking, it's like, and I mean, I wasn't able to make the.
I think there's
but-
one.
Okay,
I saw one, but if there's,
so for the most part, everything that you saw that was of any size were the pines.
that's what I saw, the stuff that, I didn't see anything except for that one tree that might be, I'll say worth saving,
Yep.
that it's like
Okay.
on
Yep.
on an area where we're not grading. There's trees in there that are
Right,
in the
no,
middle
yeah,
of the site
yeah.
that
Yep.
we're proposing to take down, but that was it. And nobody spoke up and said anything, but
Okay.
if anybody wants to walk it again and point some stuff out, I'd be glad to put that on there.
But the other problem too is that when you're out there clearing and then you go remove the stumps, the machinery that's gonna be out impacting the roots of the trees that are within the 25-foot.
That's true.
So this would be another concern, how are we gonna deal with that?
Drip zone.
You grind them.
No, the drip zone of the trees, roots that are just outside of where it's going to be cleared. Machinery should not go on top of them, or you might as well just cut them.
It contributes to saving the trees that are right on the edge into the 25-foot area, because their roots out, 20 some odd feet, as you know, as any homeowner, especially pines.
Right, but
It just,
the alteration, I see what you're saying. We've had this discussion before, that the 25-foot buffer no disturb now becomes a 50-foot no disturb, but, so,
Which might be appropriate on a steep
if there was
slope.
specific, we are not working on a steep, well, we are on top of the ridge, which is what I was trying to point out to everybody, and the grading is minimal in those areas. So that was the point that I was making there, not that, not that we're gonna make a 50-foot no-touch zone because of a pine tree root zone. That's just,
no, I'm not saying that. The thing is that controlling the process of work,
right.
not just having a fence at the 25-foot line. That somebody should be there working with the contractor, who we know are very diligent, and removing the stumps without going with the machinery close to the 25-foot zone and affecting the roots of maybe some of the trees that are being saved.
Okay, so how would you suggest to do with that?
Well, another way of having someone there responsible with the contractor saying, if you're gonna remove that tree stump, come in from the west side. Don't
Right.
go around it and try to
Oh,
push
right.
it up. Use the excavator to pull it out
Well,
that
they're
way.
gonna grind the stumps, they're not pulling
But
them.
they didn't say that yet.
Because I
Yeah, Bill.
thought he said he
I said we'd either grind them or we'd
Or
remove them
remove
from
them.
the site. So, the thought could be, so what we always do is before we let them touch the dirt, we always want the erosion control fencing up. In this particular case, because there's so little understory, I think you could put the erosion control up now. A lot of sites that are really heavy, it's unrealistic to put the erosion control up. So you clear them, then you put the erosion control, then you stump. In this particular case, I think it would be appropriate to put the erosion control up before you even cut down the trees. And then what we can do is, what do you suggest? Any stump within 25 feet of the 25-foot no-touch must be ground? Would that be?
That's an alternative option.
In that way, and then
You keep
that's
it-
easy to do, because you can just paint, what we do is we go out and we paint the trees. We can paint them, so we can paint them pink, and the guy knows he has to grind it. Otherwise, he can pull the stumps. That's a thought.
Because around the pool area there was some pretty good-sized trees there,
Yes.
and you're gonna regrade over it, so I'm pretty sure they're gonna want to pull those stumps out instead of grinding them.
Those will have to be pulled, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'll have a hole there 4 years later, it looks like a big woodchuck hole from the grindings. Oh, somebody
Yeah,
else.
I saw it.
Okay.
Just come up, use the mic, and your name, please.
Sure, John Snow, 2 Allens Way, part of Cohasset Lake Association. Separate from the building concerns, water concerns, Cohasset Lakes Association is very diligent about testing the water throughout the summer months. We've got long records of water quality, and with the cooperation of the Conservation Commission, we have managed to keep that lake quite clean. We go out, we hand pull invasive species, that sort of thing. Down the road, whatever gets built here, however it gets built, what recourse do we have if we see a significant negative impact to the water quality? Having tested it and having records of what it was before and what it was after construction. And so this is a question to you where I'm just curious, what recourse do we have to the impact on the water quality, which Cohasset Lake Association in our charter is to keep that lake in its current pristine state?
I wish I had a lawyer here, because that would be a legal question. What happens now, because I've been out on the point, and I will admit, I can see a lot of homes that have been very diligent, and I've seen can see a few spots that the people haven't been very diligent. What recourse do you have so far against anything that they have done or have not done or whatever? Do you have any, quote, teeth into the association's bylaws?
Again, that's what I'm asking you under the law. What is our recourse? To this point, we have not seen an impact to our water quality.
Okay.
Okay? And so what I'm saying is the vast majority of the homes around there are quite diligent about letting vegetation grow up, and, they can see the water, but it's not a clear-cut sort of thing. And I don't mean that in a negative way, the way Bill was taking it. I'm just saying that it's not a clear, unobstructed view for most of those homes. But we have not detected anything.
But I guess, Mike, I'm throwing the question back to you. Supposing before this ever starts,
Right.
what if the water quality degrades? And you know one homeowner.
If we can figure it out, we will go and say to that homeowner, we're detecting coliform here, or whatever the
But do you have
bacteria might
any legal authority to?
That I don't know.
Okay.
Right, and that's what you're asking about, is in your charter, is there any, do you have any legal repercussion, abilities within your charter?
I'd have to check on that, but, so that would be on that side of things.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question.
Because I don't think we have any legal authority.
Right.
And I
So
don't
we
know if
couldn't file a complaint with the Conservation Commission?
In the future?
Yeah.
No, but you could appeal their decision.
Are you, just curious, I mean, are you measuring water quality around the lake? Or is that what you're doing normally? Just because I'm just my own curiosity on that. Okay, yeah, so you're not just going out one spot or a couple
No.
spots, you just, yeah, okay,
Yeah. Historically, we've measured in several locations throughout the lake.
okay.
Have you found any correlations of poorer water quality in places that don't have a buffer zone?
I'm not the one who could answer that.
Because that would
But
be an
there-
interesting
But I believe
thing.
there is someone here who might be able to.
That would be an interesting thing to look into. So can I make a quick response?
Sure.
So basically, what's going on right now is the commission is tasked with reviewing this proposed project to see if it complies with the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and complies with the requirements of the bylaw. And that includes that section I just stated about no net loss policy. So it's the applicant's burden of proof to show that the work they're proposing won't have any negative impact on the interests of the bylaw and the act. And the act, like I said, is not very strict. It's possible the commission sometimes will approve an order under a state and deny it under a bylaw because they do have such different criteria. So what they're going to do is they'll review the science, they'll base their findings on the science, and that's all they can do. So the recourse in the future is, well, they did the best that they could do with the facts that they had. And like what Bob said, especially if you have water quality data for years, I mean, that's kind of interesting if someone were to put together, well, gee, Joe Schmo over here has a really wide buffer, and look at his water quality and the water depths and the heat and all, as compared to this person over here who's cleared everything. I think that would be something that would, well, for a geek like me, I think that would be some really interesting information. But if anyone wants to look at my beautiful buffer zone science book, you're welcome to come in and read it to your heart's content. I have all sorts of little flags, and it has proposed conditions at the end, which, by the way, I found some cool condition recently, Bill. It had to do with construction fencing and the details about how to put it up. I think it had some sort of metal supports every so many feet and stuff. So, I'm always coming up with new science-based, fun-to-read conditions.
So just two things, Bill. Just to explain for the commission how you're meeting the stormwater issue on the front part of the driveway. Just to remind everybody that they have to comply with that.
Right. So the short answer, sorry, is we don't have to comply with any of the stormwater regulations
Okay,
because it is a single-family house.
okay.
However, that being said, we do comply because what we do is, I think specifically you were talking about the roadway. So if you go stand on the street and look into the lot where I put the stakes going in, it comes in off the road and drops, and then it goes back up. There's a natural depression
Slide
there.
back up.
Sure. There's a natural depression there. And so what we're doing out here is, this is a 12-foot driveway, and as you're looking at it that way, as you're going up the driveway is going to be pitched to the right. So most roads are crowned, right? This is pitched to the right, and the reason for that is because if you look kind of where I'm following my hand, we're going to put a stone trench over there on the right side, and what that will do is that will capture runoff, and it's going to infiltrate some of it, but it's going to take the rest of it and put it down into this depression, which is naturally occurring down there. And actually, that's the best way to infiltrate runoff, is to put it in an area that's not disturbed. And so that's how the runoff is going to be handled on that portion of the site. We're up on top, which is on the, the peak is right here, where that big chunk of ledge sticks out. And now it's pitching back down. And what we were talking about earlier is, what I was bringing before was bringing it down and then putting it in a little rain garden here. But what we can do is, in order to bring this driveway back, we'll pitch it toward this other depression, which you recall when you walked out there, and we'll put it over here again in this portion of the site that will remain natural, and we'll pitch it that way, and that's where we will infiltrate down there. And that is actually right on the edge or just outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So the runoff will be, we'll get it through, it will be infiltrated through that natural area as far away from the wetlands as practical on this site. Does that answer your question?
I just wanted to let everybody be reminded how you're trying to, help out in that situation there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have a question for you, Bill. You'll know this better than I do. The erosion and sedimentation control regulations,
Yeah.
the MS4 ones for the planning board's review, I think.
Yeah,
How
both-
does that
Both
apply
it
to,
is, but go ahead.
how does that apply to single-family houses? Does it?
It does apply if it's more than
Anything over
one-
an acre, right?
If it's over an acre.
Okay.
That's right. So if it's over an acre, the local bylaw mirrors the federal regulation. So if you disturb over an acre of soil, then you have to fall under it's a federal regulation, but is brought down to the state level. And in Foxborough, because the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board, if this was over an acre, which it's not, because the.
It's not over an acre of alteration?
No. No, it's not even close.
Really?
This is, if it was, as long as we receive a permit from the Planning Board or Conservation Commission, then we wouldn't have to file separately for that stormwater permit. If this was on top of a hill and it was a vacant lot and somebody wanted to clear an acre, then we'd have to file separately with the Planning Board. But in this particular case, that's not the issue.
Good. I'm glad we're not responsible for that. I just wasn't really clear about how that all fit together.
Bill, one other thought, I don't know if this works or not, but given, one of the issues that has been raised is the view of the other residents. Is there any chance to bring the whole thing back a little bit? That might then allow for less clear cutting on the tip of the peninsula? I don't know how it works.
I mean,
engineering.
if you, so let me just look at this out here. I mean, you have, this is the clear, this is the 25-foot no disturb, and then you can see this lighter green. This is not water, that's also wetland, it's lower. And if you remember during the walk, you had this huge area that juts out, that's wetland that we can't go into. So this is probably, I mean, I think that what most of the comments that I've seen have to do over here on the east side, because this is where the roadway is and the beach area. So I'm not sure that moving it back 10 feet or whatever that we could possibly do is going to do anything over here. We're just going to be sliding it back, which is not going to affect this side. You'll pick up a little more in the front there, but, I think what David's comment was about putting some plantings over on, evergreens over on that side will probably be helpful to that issue that you're talking about. And then it's also, I mean, you were out there, I was out there. It's a lot of that, we're not gonna be touching that stuff. You saw where the cut line was. So there was a decent amount of trees staying in that area. So let me just work on that plantings plan and let's see how that works. If it's gonna be evergreens, that will do it.
I might at some point want to walk, I didn't walk it with you,
Sure.
so.
Be glad to walk it, if anybody wants to
I
walk.
think that if you want to put anything out front there that can be managed as far as vista pruning goes and serve multiple functions, it being the north and all, you might want to try blueberry bushes for the most part. And that would be a slight buffer to the wind. But as one comment letter, if I'm going to read them, mentions the wind and the problems it causes. I know the north wind blowing down a lake like that can be brutal. It can be very, very cold and it can cause a lot of damage. So the trees that are left standing will hopefully be very strong trees. And a lot of them in there are tupelos, and tupelo trees are the, fact for the day. They're the longest lived tree in Massachusetts. They live about 300 to 500 years. And their way of surviving that long is when there is a big storm, their top snaps off. And I noticed there were a bunch out there that they had snapped at the top. So there are a lot in that northern section that may provide protection.
Okay, you want to read
Shall I
that?
read?
Sure.
All right, the first one is from the Stephanie Roost and Jeremy Jenkins of 22 Prospect Street. And they say, my husband Jeremy Jenkins and I live at 22 Prospect Street.
A little bit closer to the mic.
Can you hear me? At 22 Prospect Street, and are direct abutters to the proposed development at 31 Water Street with a shared property line. I attended the committee meeting, and many members of the Cohasset Lake Association with many members, and have requested all of the available documentation and public record about the proposal. After reviewing the proposal in detail, as well as available information about other properties that surround Cohasset Lake, we have significant concerns about the impact that the current proposal will have on the pristine lake environment that we currently have. Currently, the peninsula at 31 Water Street is home to a variety of wildlife, including amphibians, reptiles, e.g. painted and snapping turtles, birds, e.g. geese, ducks, swans, herons, and many others, deer, in parentheses, which are often seen crossing from the state forest through our property and into the peninsula, and many more. It also includes a buffer zone filled with plants native to the area that provide not only a beautiful natural habitat for wildlife, but also contribute substantially to the lake water quality. Our main concerns are as follows. 1, 31 Water Street, as well as my property, is north-facing. As such, there are significant winds that come through the 31 Water Street Peninsula and across the lake. It is common occurrence to have large branches and debris be blown across the lake to the small inlet near our dock, and we have lost multiple trees and treetops due to high winds over the past 3 years. The current proposal shows drastic clearing of almost the entire width of the peninsula to accommodate the house. In many areas, the 25-foot buffer is on an extremely steep slope, thus providing limited windbreak. We have significant concerns that clear-cutting so much of the width of the property, leaving on only a small area of steep buffer zone, will lead to even higher winds through the area, which can significantly impact and weaken the remaining trees, the buffer zone habitat, and the water quality in this section of the lake. 2, the owner of 31 Water Street will be responsible for over 1,200 feet of waterfront, which is a substantial portion of the entire lake waterfront. A buffer zone is critical to water quality, and this property, therefore, makes up a large portion of this buffer zone. As it currently stands, the 25-foot buffer zone, particularly in multiple regions around the peninsula that are very steep slopes, may be inadequate to maintain the water quality and prevent erosion, as it is known that water travels more rapidly through steep slopes, thus decreasing the amount of time that the water can be filtered through the plant life and soil. At this time, the majority of the landscape on the outer edges of this property represent a pristine buffer zone with minimal existing invasive species, and every effort should be made to maintain this area rather than destroy it. 3, upon a review of the surrounding properties, the average house foundation distance from the waterfront is 108 feet with an average impervious area of 2,268 square feet. The current proposal is a mere 35 feet from water to foundation with a total impervious area of 9,125 square feet, more than triple the average Cohasset Lake home, and a house foundation size of 7,225 square feet. This may also have significant impact on rainwater runoff and drainage, despite the proposals that attempt to mitigate this issue. 4, the proposal and maps were drafted in April 2021 when the water level was at a low. It is imperative that for the Commission to consider the implications of the current proposal when water levels are at average or peak levels. Given the multiple concerns related to the impact on the waterfront water quality, windbreak, buffer zone, and local wildlife, we feel strongly that the Commission recommend increasing the buffer zone beyond what is currently proposed. To accomplish this, we recommend that the builder/owner consider turning the house on its side with the garage closest to the front of the property rather than across the peninsula in order to maintain the beautiful view desired by the owner, while allowing for an increased buffer zone in an effort to maintain the pristine nature of the buffer zone that currently exists. A home with an impervious area greater than 3 times the average square feet of all of the other properties on Cohasset Lake will undoubtedly have a significant impact on the local environment and ecosystem, and we urge the Commission to carefully consider this impact when reviewing the 31 Water Street proposal. That's number 1. That's the longest. Okay. So this one is from the Gilbys at 18 Prospect Street. Concerns we have. The house, garage, and patio are as shown in the plan, come very close to the 25-foot no disturb line on 3 sides, almost touching the 25-foot line in several places. The cleared area is shown going right up to the 25-foot line. A 25-foot wide vegetated buffer does not seem adequate to protect the lake from runoff from areas including lawns planted between the building and 25-foot line. This narrow buffer is particularly worrisome since much of the buffer zone slopes steeply to the water. Comments. Jane's suggestion to align the building along the spine of the peninsula is a good one. The no disturb buffer zone could then be made wider, perhaps even doubled in width, making it much more effective in protecting the lake. This would also protect many more trees. An alternative thought would be to keep the original orientation of the house, but move the garage and guest cottage to make an L to the south of the house. This shortens the linear extent of the building, which in turn would permit a wider buffer zone as recommended above. Protect aesthetic and scenic values. The Foxborough bylaw stipulates that buffer zone shall maintain an adequate cover of vegetation to preserve aesthetic and scenic values. This is not quantifiable in the same sense as protection of the lake from contamination, but in our view is just as important. Cohasset Lake is not overdeveloped, and for the most part, natural shoreline dominates the view. The proposed development is in a very prominent position in the end of a peninsula and visible from most points on the lake. Aesthetic and scenic values will be best preserved to the extent that this new house blends with its surroundings. In our opinion, an adequate buffer zone, preserving as much as possible of the existing vegetation and mature trees, is the way to go. This one is from Paul Hainsworth, 10 Woodland Road. He wrote, I'm opposed to the commission allowing development within the 100-foot boarding vegetated wetland, or BVW, for the proposed project at 31 Water Street. The peninsula at 31 Water Street is a very environmentally sensitive piece of land with steep slopes and sandy soil, and the proposed project is non-conforming in several areas. To address the non-conformance issues, the applicant has requested variances or exceptions from the Board of Health, Planning Board, and the Conservation Commission. However, the applicant's plan has actually created every one of the non-conforming conditions, and now the applicant seeks relief. I believe that variances are intended to address situations where the owner of the land would face undue financial hardship, what the Board of Health describes as manifest injustice. I believe that variance should not be granted for non-conforming situations that the applicant intentionally created, in this case by trying to divide the property at 31 Water Street so that the front portion can be built on and sold as a separate property. It should also be noted that in this case, the applicant is not the landowner. To build a new house at 31 Water Street, conformance is available. I think that the first step would be to not divide the property at 31 Water Street. This eliminates the effort to squeeze in 2 septic systems. A single septic system could be proposed at a conforming distance from the water. To address the BVW, the proposed house could be moved sideways and or back from the end of the peninsula to keep the 100-foot buffer zone intact. And last but not least, this one's from Patty Fitzgerald of 6 Woodland Road. First of all, thank you for your dedication and diligence in volunteering your time and effort to protecting our precious environment. It's addressed, dear commissioners. My husband Terry and I are fortunate enough to live directly across Cohasset Lake from the property in question tonight. Our view is what you see in the photograph taken Sunday, October 31st, 2021. It was pretty. This is black and white, though. We are admittedly biased in not wanting to lose this incredible view. We also do not want to prevent new neighbors, their family, and friends from enjoying it, which all can do from our community beach 2 lots down from us on Water Street. I may well have missed it, but I haven't heard a compelling reason why this body should approve a waiver of the setback requirements written by people far wiser than I to protect flora and fauna. A full view of the lake from the property does not seem persuasive. My husband and I would ask that the commission reject a waiver and enforce the required setbacks, even if that mandates a resiting, redesign, and lower square footage of the building. So, again, the waiver thing is, a lot of those have to do with others than the commission, except for the 25-foot no activity zone.
Thank you for that, Jane.
Yes, Question from the association. The gentleman from the association,
Everyone here is from the association.
but the one that has knowledgeable facts,
Yeah.
do you have a record of the highest water level that lake has occurred, even though the dam controls it, but the association should have records of, you know, the highest flood level.
Yeah, we'd have to look.
It's probably the top of the dam, isn't it?
Well, we had a 100-year flood probably 15, 20 years ago, I remember, and it got really close to the top, and that's when the state put in law.
John, you need to,
Oh,
sorry, you need
yeah.
to speak in the mic.
Yeah, so I want to, excuse me, so John Snow with the Comcast Lake Association. So probably 15, 20 years ago, we had a, don't quote me on that, I can't remember, but it was a 100-year flood event. And that's when the state put in place the regulation that all earthen dams had to be inspected every 5 years. I'll make note that we're one of the few dams in the state, apparently, that does that. But so we do drawdowns and we test it, but it's gotten close to the top during a 100-year flood. But there was no seepage, you know, our dam remained intact.
And
So
you
it
have
gets
that-
pretty darn high.
Yeah, do you have that elevation by any chance?
We would have to go back and look.
Okay.
You know, we could possibly estimate, but I don't know that anyone took an actual measurement.
I mean, I guess the question, do you have evidence of where the water line was on the dam?
Again, I would have
You know,
to,
like if somebody take a photograph or something, we could see where it
I would
was.
have to ask the person who's actually responsible for maintaining the dam, the boards in the dam and the water level.
Okay.
So I'll make a note of that.
There is a letter of map amendment to the FEMA flood map for that lake. And I think that Bill included it, at least you included that floodplain level, which coincided with that.
It's 240.3. So I don't know how that correlates with the road. I have that information, I have it somewhere, I'll find out.
I think you put something on the plan, and I double-checked the Loma.
It is on the plan.
Yeah, but I'll find out what the spot grade on the street is. So now you'll know, oh, it's this much below the spot, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got the FEMA flood zone number on there, it's 240.3.
Yeah, and I would have put it in my comments if I had begged to differ with that Loma, so I think it's the same. And that's what goes, is the FEMA flood map.
Anything else? Motion to continue to November, excuse me, November 29th.
I'll make that motion to continue to November 29th.
Seconded.
Discussion? All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Opposed? None? I should have asked, will you be ready by then?
It's born ready.
Okay.
So, hey, Rich, if you're, let me know when you think is it during the week, probably during the day? You want to go out there? I'll figure something out. Let me know when you're going out, and I'll see if I can make it.
Okay, all right.
If not, I'll have to find out from Bill one other time.
All right, I'll let you know.
It's supposed to be nice this whole week.
Was that,
Supposed to be nice weather, I think all week.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Hey, Rich,
If you weren't late the last time, I would have been able to walk it.
Don't bring that up.
you can drop me a line. I can
Oh, hi,
go out
Ty.
with you, so.
I'm Jane Pierce.
Just go tell Bill.
Yeah. He wants
Yeah,
to
I
go.
want Bill out there with me.
Yeah, but who's gonna tell him?
I'll communicate.
Go through Jane, please.
All right,
Yes.
sure.
Okay. Try to,
Makes sense, yeah.
okay.
Why don't you send me an email, and I'll see what I can search up. And if, we should have them.
No, what is the next one?
Being 7:10, we have a continuation for 16 Garrison Road. Are you still on, Mr. Buckley, or are you?
Before he leaves, Bill, did we make a time for the 28 Camp Road site visit?
Yeah, it was like
2 p.m.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock
Is it like 2?
2 o'clock tomorrow.
Well, everyone else knows, so I guess good. Okay. Tomorrow, eh?
Yeah, 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Camp Road.
It's the one that was,
Triani.
I thought he had a different firm, I thought he had RIM.
But Mr. Buckley is coming on as an advisor.
Oh, okay, but Giuliani,
Yep,
so RIM Engineering is still there.
yep.
So when is this?
Tomorrow at 2.
Oh, that's right. My email's still not working.
Oh, okay.
Still can't get in, huh?
When are you gonna break down and call, what is it,
Well, we've called Verizon and you
The
sit there
geeks?
for an hour and a
yeah,
half.
the Geeks,
Best Buy Geeks or the something other Geeks?
Oh,
Geek
Geek
Squad?
Geek Squad, yeah.
You don't need the Geek Squad, you need Verizon.
Okay, all right. Scott?
Good evening, Scott Martiniak, owner applicant. I have a new set of plans and a new note to go with the plans. So pretty much the existing ones are off, so we could discard them, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
So on the plan, you can see that I removed everything except for the 100-foot no disturb zone line. So I'm removing any work from within the buffer area. When we changed the property line, it enabled us to pull the house to the left a little bit to be able to get what we want to get. It's not perfect, but we can make it work. We did some perk tests there today. Everything was successful, so everything is good on our part. So I don't know if you have any questions in regards to that. We once again, as I tried to achieve in the previous two meetings, was, okay, what area do we have to work in? Then we can back a house plan into said area. So in not being able to get to that point, we decided we're just gonna take it out of the resource area.
So you have a house plan, but it's not here because it's
It's
entirely
not there, it's
outside.
not decided on, and it doesn't seem applicable in this situation because we're outside of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. We are just not gonna do any
All
work.
100? Is that all 100 or was that 20-foot
Nope,
setback?
all completely out of the resource area. So I guess there's really no discussion on that. So to restoring the existing area, I agree that I will do some restoration in there. It was pulled back in some regards, not on purpose. One of the biggest things were the trees. So a couple of things happened. First, we were gonna be able to use machinery and we were gonna go to larger trees. Then we can't use machinery, so now we have to do the work by hand. So that makes any larger trees more difficult. More importantly, there are no larger trees. The largest trees that I could find available right now, and that was checking with 3 nurseries, Sylvain being one of the largest in the state. and they have to stick with red oak and red maple, red maple. I forget which one is which, but one, they're only available in 3 to 4 feet, and the other one, they're available in 4 to 5 feet. So I just kind of put in my notes, a general, trees will be 3 to 5 feet.
Scott, can I ask you a question right now?
Sure.
Did you check Bigelow Nurseries? Because Southborough's been harassing them into having a large selection of native plants.
So the landscaper did it because that's kind of his forte, and he told me that where he called, we didn't mention them, so I don't know. But on top of that, we also have
Hard
an
to find
issue
them.
of the size of the trees versus the mechanical and hand working them. So the other thing that I kind of disagree, I actually disagree with, I took liberty to go out onto the site and I scratched away some of the wood chips.
Oh, good.
And just to see how thick the bed of wood chips was and whatnot. And again, once again, spending more time out there, there's a lot of stuff growing back in the wood chips. And it seems like the one thing that the wood chips did was it kept invasives down, because there are very little invasives in the wood chip area. They're in the other areas. So they've already started to decompose. And just so the board understands where those chips come from, that wasn't from a chipper sitting there and they were just blowing chips. That was just done by their brush cutter. So they go in and get the smaller, lower stuff with the brush cutter, and it chips it right in place. So there's really not, I didn't find any deep piles of chips. I quickly got through it and I was into pine needles. So in my thing, I'm proposing to not remove the chips. In my opinion, I, A, don't think it's necessary, B, I think it's gonna disturb some of the growth that is reoccurring out there now if we do that. And the other thing, we will go in and hand remove the invasives. I was hoping I could work with Jane on 2 things, location of trees and what invasives that we would like to see. I put in there majority simply because I just don't want to be in a situation, oh, we found one invasive over here and type of deal.
Would I do that?
So in doing this, I'm also proposing that so I would expect that I will be involved in this project through to the end of next summer, and I will monitor for invasives, and if invasives return next spring, which I'm sure they will, we will once again hand pull the invasives. And number 6 in my notes that I'm asking, because we all know that the minute we have a outstanding order of conditions, that the banks don't like it, the buyers don't like it, all that type of stuff. I tried to review through, so anything happening here was within the local bylaw, and there is no thing that I could find that requires 2 growing seasons before a certificate of compliance is issued. So I am just asking, after this work is completed, that Jane or the board, whoever would confirm that this stuff was completed, that I'm proposing, and at that point we go before the board and get a certificate of compliance on the work, so.
You mean full certificate or partial?
No, a
'Cause
full
we talked
certificate.
about that.
A full certificate. Because I don't find anywhere in our local bylaw that states that there should be a 2-year growing season.
That's what the commission usually requires. And that's what the state requires for restoration work. But that's replication work. The commission does use that same language, though, for their upland restoration areas. Because otherwise, they may not survive, Scott. That's the thing. You know, you say, okay, I'm gone.
Well,
Even-
I understand that. One of the other things that the landscaper pointed out to me in regards to size of trees, he says the smaller trees have a much better chance of survival than a larger tree does.
Yes and no, because the smaller trees will probably be chewed to pieces by the deer who think that maple and oak buds are very yummy.
One thought that I have in regards to the deer, which I've kind of seen
They're there. We know they're there.
Since I've
They're
been working there,
everywhere.
I know they're there, but they tend to not be there as much once there's work going on around. I do occasionally see some prints.
Well, when the work is ongoing, except, they say that the chainsaw is the deer's dinner call. So, I mean, they mostly do their stuff at nighttime.
Right.
I know.
And I think they've become very nocturnal once the activity starts. You don't see them in the day.
Oh, I'm sure they would,
very
yeah.
much. And
Yeah. They're opportunistic.
And in March, when you're not there doing the work and they're hungry and have nothing else to eat, they'll definitely be in there.
Yeah, they can be very, very bold. They're pests.
Yep.
They're
Is
cute
there any
pests.
spray? I know some people hang soap on the trees, and I don't know if that's
I've heard all of them. You'd probably need to get something that is on the deer don't like to eat it list. And I have a list like that. I know that they really like red maple, because anytime a red maple tree comes down, they eat all the buds. Oak, they eat they've been eating the coppice, the stuff that's been growing up of the oaks, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to eat them. We talked about that. They're tough.
I also you really might talk with your landscaper, because red maple trees have a tendency to like moister soil, and this soil is pretty porous, sandy. So, what's to keep the moisture there that they love?
That was actually a request from Jane. that
Yeah, what we
wanted to-
did was, he did
red
this,
maple.
actually. He was very good. He went around and he looked at all of the native vegetation in the areas that hadn't been cut. And red maples, yes, there are red maple swamps, but they will grow in many other different places as well. So what he did is he went out there, and I was very impressed. He said, well, it looks like we have this and this, and part of them was also beech, but a lot of the beech trees are having issues right now, so the beech might not have been a sustainable thing.
There's actually predominantly pine is the dominant species that grows in there.
There is a lot of pine.
And there is
But-
a lot of pine renewing itself, is obviously they do.
Don't necessarily want that.
Yeah.
Deer supposedly won't eat pine, but they will even eat pine.
Have to go hunting, I guess.
I'm sorry?
I say you have to go hunting.
Yeah. Yeah, with all the houses around there, we used to have a couple of guys that used to hunt out there all the time, but
Probably can now, right?
No? Too close to the houses?
Even if you shot towards that
Yeah.
way.
Certain number
It
of
doesn't
feet
matter
within-
which
Yeah,
way
a lot
you
of
shoot
most-
with.
Oh,
most
that's
guys are
true.
doing archery now.
I'm supposed to know
So I think
that.
there's a little different laws regarding archery. I know shotgun, you have to be at least
I
100
think
feet.
they're the same.
100 feet and 500 feet from a road, so that pretty much excludes them there, so.
I don't think archery's, I'll have to check, but personally, I think archery is a little lot better. And you do have to be pretty close. So, I mean, these are the things that Scott and I had talked about. The deer are gonna come, it would be nice if the trees that were cut that are sprouting would be allowed to grow. And that can be done, but he's gonna have to make all these crazy cages to keep these darn deer out,
Right,
because
and then
they are
what's
persistent.
Then there's a point where first of all, I thinking of my future homeowner there's not gonna wanna see a bunch of cages
No.
out there.
No,
And then once the trees reach the top of the cage, it's gonna prohibit their growth and, right?
Well, that's why they wanted the
So
taller-
it's not a long-term solution.
that's why they wanted the taller trees, though. So, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another type of thing.
Yeah, again, it wasn't by me being, what's the word I'm looking for? That I don't want to do it. They, just weren't available, and when I told my landscaper that we were going to originally be able to use equipment to plant them, that was fine, but when I told them no, and based on the soil conditions out there, a 10 to 12 foot tree has a very large ball, so that's a huge job.
We did in the last meeting discuss using heavy equipment to plant the larger
Yeah,
trees.
from outside of the 100-foot, to
So,
at least drop it
it's
down in
already
place.
been run over.
From outside the 100 feet, how are we gonna?
Just to deposit it, a big backhoe.
The whole lot has been run over anyways.
And I challenged him, I think, I started looking into, where you could purchase those and stuff, and then I ran out of, I got, something else came along. But I started to look at your proposal, which I hadn't seen before when you came last time, and I didn't know what you're talking about. But I did look, and the Northborough's, whatever I just said, starts with a B, nurseries, had a bunch. I mean, a lot of them have all these different variants. The native ones are what you want. And they did have a bunch of them, and I could get my list out, I think.
Right, so I don't know, again, we specifically were looking for red oak and red maple. So that was what available, red oak.
Bigelow.
I didn't look into
Bigelow.
different species, so.
It's, it's a pain in the neck to find native plants. And that's why I've got my native plant restoration guide that has a list of all the places that you can buy them. Because, you can say as much as you want, oh, isn't this wonderful, let's get some native plants. But if you can't find them, that doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, and usually Sylvain is the most resourceful place.
Really? Sylvan, you say?
Have you ever been there?
I think Rich
No.
brings up a point.
amazing.
That this area's been run over quite a bit by heavy equipment. And that allowing the use of, it's a disturbed area, but allowing the use of heavy equipment to get the restoration going and install, plan.
Especially with all the
Yeah, I mean,
cool
shade is
toys
our
there are
biggest-
out there today.
Shade is our
The what?
biggest issue with this.
The cool toys. There's so many neat toys, these little
Oh.
backhoes and little this and little
Yeah,
that.
when we say heavy equipment, we're talking about small excavator.
Little heavy equipment,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
the problem may once again be availability of the trees. We could possibly change the species. More importantly, no offense, but I do not want to come back on the 29th to another meeting. I came in here 2 meetings ago. We came to an agreement as to what I needed to get a vote to proceed. I came in here last week and that had changed. So
I talked them out of it.
I'm
Remember?
afraid that
Did you see the
I
end
come
of the
back here
meeting?
once again and I'm losing time. And you guys have proven to me that I am not doing anything until we are in full agreement because we changed from week to week to week. So if we start pushing ourselves into the end of November, at that point, there's probably not going to be any trees available
Well,
because they
one
put them
thing-
back in the ground.
One thing,
The ground may be frozen.
Scott, when we get it on the day of the meeting, we don't have time to review it, and we don't know what we're talking about, at least I don't. And last time, at the end, you guys all decided that Scott could plant the trees,
Yep.
get rid of the invasives by hand, and have me be the guiding person type of thing. I mean, I'm happy to help with it as far as, pointing where to put things. And like I said, I did look into plant species for you. And I know that there were several. There weren't a ton of them, though. I see what you're talking about.
It's like everything right now. We can't-
It's true,
We can't get anything.
yeah, and everything costs a fortune.
Just,
But if you spent money on getting a whole bunch of smaller trees and they were all chewed up, that wouldn't be good either.
so technically, we are still in a continued public hearing that has not been closed.
Correct.
He has provided us now an updated, revised plan that,
Revised plan, which
meets
shows no
our-
house, AK.
right, but meets our initial discussions, and with addition to what Jane has talked to him about. I think this is coming to a point where he's gonna go forward with a reasonable restoration plan with the conditions that are there. Should be allowed to use the small equipment to help plant these
larger sized trees,
well, or whatever.
yeah.
Same time, he's gonna have to take care of them. It's so late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other part is the performance that he wishes not to go beyond, looks like spring of 2022.
And
And
I-
normally we have a policy,
2 years,
2 years.
yeah.
And usually that falls on the landscaper or whoever installs it besides the applicant.
Yeah.
Guarantee that it
Yeah.
grows.
Yeah, next spring is, I mean, there's no, it's not enough growing time
Right.
next spring.
To take.
I could see getting a partial certificate of compliance after all if the work is done to your satisfaction.
A partial.
A
Okay.
partial, but then you'd still, the bank still wouldn't be thrilled, but there would be a partial, and the partial would say, monitoring is really all that's left to
So-
be done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just to get kind of what Dave was saying, so Scott, your plan right now is you're doing the work yourself, is that correct?
Hiring a landscaper to do the
Okay,
work.
so that's what I was hoping you were gonna say. Based on what, David just said, if that bond is put onto them to maintain that for 2 years, so you're not in there. Still has to be dealt with, and we can't issue we can't issue the final certificate of compliance until that's done, right, Jane?
I don't
Normally-
think that it would be a smart thing to do.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
I wouldn't recommend it.
But you've got somebody else that you can hold to the requirement versus yourself being out there.
Less of a concern than the full certificate of compliance.
But we have talked about that.
I mean, I've done it, did it just recently, and, it worked out, the bank did agree, but I know it's always that the banks don't want, that's a glitch on the deed for them.
It may be encumbrance on the deed itself, but its action is relative to an area that's not being built upon.
That's true.
No structures are going on, no septic system,
Yeah,
which is a difference in discussing with the bank. That does not impact you building that house, selling that house, and making the improvements. It just impacts the area that needed restoration. And if you sold it, the new landowner is going to be, well, really, the new landowner shouldn't be responsible for the plantings. It still should fall
On the applicant, but ultimately, it's a landowner's home,
Right.
their deed, their glitch on their deed.
Right. But the applicant would say that I'm responsible for making sure that these plants grow, they get watered, and, or through your landscaper, they get watered and stuff like that. And the new homeowner would just have to give them permission across the yard to get to water these things and check up on them, make sure they haven't been all eaten. I think there's ways around this, so that you can do what you want to.
I still would ask them, pushing for that. I agree to do this work, I would agree to a change of species, I want to leave here tonight with an agreement. But I really, the certificate of compliance, this is kind of a give and take situation I'm seeing, and, I'm giving, so I'm asking for you to give, and your opportunity to give would be in
I
that.
think our given would be the partial certificate, not the full, and the basis of the full would be the monitoring of the 2 years growing period, which is pretty much standard what we've always, every time we've had plantings, it's always been a 2-year monitoring period to that.
And you'd make the landscaper responsible for watering them and taking care of it, so you don't have to be there all the time. I think it's a way of working this out. But another consideration, Bob,
Can you point out somewhere in the bylaws where that's a requirement?
I don't know if it's in the bylaw, but it's been our standard for eons. It's always been there. It's every certificate or every order of conditions has that in there as a monitoring for 2 years from,
So it's a,
Otherwise, restoration is meaningless. You could plant the stuff and walk away from it, and nothing happens.
Yeah, it's true.
It just doesn't make any common sense.
I mean, it's bound to grow back someday, but grow back with what is the problem?
Instead of waiting for
All you have to do is look at the Cocasset River Park areas, and it just gets run over with invasives and stuff, and your buyer won't like that either. So Scott,
I think it's a good offer.
yeah.
bounds,
huh?
have the bounds been dropped?
The bounds have been dropped, the other area has been dropped.
I thought you were talking about a give and take, and we've come so close last time.
I think we have come close, so really, my alternative is, again, I've hired legal counsel to go over this whole process. I am not legally obligated to do this restoration. According to my legal counsel, all of my research, and right in your bylaw, it says previously developed area. Well, that clearly is a previously developed area, cannot be an assumed certified vernal pool because there was not a notice of intent filed at the time that it was certified. So I am not legally bound to do any restoration. So my option is to once again leave the meeting, and I will move forward with building the house, and I won't do any restoration. I would like to do some restorations. I've expressed from the very beginning that I want to work with the board. I'm trying to present something that is, we did the research, as I said, it's not that I'm not trying to get the 10 to 12-foot trees, because I was in agreement to plant 20 10 to 12-foot trees. I could not get the 10 to 12-foot trees. And once again, I'm afraid we can use machinery, we can't use machinery. We can use machinery, we can't use
That's
machinery.
not correct.
No,
That is
no.
not correct.
No.
And this plan doesn't even have locations for, you're talking 60 trees?
40 trees.
You got 40 red oaks?
I said that I would work with Jane on the location. My idea was to plant them as
Okay, well,
reasonably close.
there's only 27 on the plan, so this isn't
No.
even a plan for
No,
restoration.
The trees
No,
that,
those are stumps. Those are previously cut down trees. Those were the 36, 15, 12-inch, 24-inch, et cetera. So those were the ones that were cut down, and what is wants to replace them is with much smaller trees.
But this doesn't solve the issue of the shading, which is what's been wiped out.
Yeah, exactly.
can I make another statement?
Sure.
So I've become very educated in vernal pools, and I've done a lot of thinking about what went on out there. And although I said this in the last meeting, I've reviewed the area further, and I take that back. So there's a couple of things. That vernal pool was certified with one species for the certification, which is a fairy shrimp. Fairy shrimps do not leave the water. So a 100-foot buffer zone to protect that certified vernal pool, which was certified under the fairy shrimp, seems like a useless exercise, for one. For two, a couple of things that may be in there, salamanders, wood frogs. Salamanders don't go far from the water's edge. Wood frogs will travel. They prefer south-facing slopes because of snow, the ice melt on the edge of the pond, so on, so forth. Not any area on that side. In fact, down the whole Garrison Road, there is a very steep east-facing to north-facing slope before we get into any of this area. So there is no science. When we sit here and we take a vernal pool and we wrap a 100-foot circle around it, there's no science. That's just an unjust taking of land. Those two vernal pools there in themselves have taken about 5 acres of upland away from taxpayers. So we're fighting over restoring an area that really is not a good resource area for the habitat. The area that could potentially be is in the rear of the property, the south basin slopes that I was offering up for protection in exchange for the 20 feet that you didn't want to give me. So that is off the table. So once again, I want to work with the board. I am willing to do this. that I'm proposing here. If you want to change the species in there, we can change the species. I would like to work with Jane on what are the invasive species, what do we want removed, where do you want the trees planted? Here are the trees, show me where you want me to plant them, and we'll do that.
You know, Scott, we spent an awful lot of time going back and forth on this, and you and I have talked about this a lot, and this doesn't feel like a good faith effort to me. This feels like I'm offering you this, and I'm going to take it away if you don't jump real fast. And I mean, I would have met with you about putting the plants in and stuff like that, and it's just frustrating, so
How did
I don't know
we
where to
get-
go with it.
How did we get there? Can we go back and think about how we got there? So I came in 2 meetings ago, and we came to an agreement. Everything was good. This is what we were gonna do. Scott, put it on a plan, put it in writing. I did exactly that and then some. My plan was very more inclusive than what we discussed. I came in here, no, we're not voting on that because we want to see where the house is going. That is outside of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So when we say we're working in good faith, who's working in good faith and who isn't? I believe that I was working in good faith. So now I've been pushed to, okay, we're not going to come to an agreement. I'm just going to take the house out of the buffer zone, out of the jurisdiction. And the board forced me to do that. That was not my choice.
Before the town sold that one lot that gave access to this whole area, they ensured that the 100-foot upland area was preserved because the pools were, I was asked to certify them by Kevin Pecos before that lot be sold. So it's not like that was taken away from the taxpayers. The taxpayers actually have more properties that they're getting income from because that one lot that the town owned that the commission didn't want to sell was opened up. So, you know, we can go back and forth tit for tat, and it's just, the bottom line is something was done. It's in an area that's protected by the bylaw. We know that there are wood frogs and salamanders, and they do travel up to like 600 feet away, both of them. And they do live on south, east, southwest, east, west, who knows, slopes. But those slopes were destroyed, and we get back into a he said, she said, and it's just exhausting. I have no idea what to do about this, folks. You know, if we
Well,
let him do it, everyone else is going to,
okay.
and everyone is. Everyone's chopping all trees and they're doing things
Yeah.
without, if you can't be there every minute to watch, they're just gonna do what they wanna do, and it frustrates me, disgusts me, actually, I'm annoyed. Thought we had something set.
Yeah.
As did I. And I came in here with everything that I was asked, like I said, everything I was asked to come in here with and more, between my plan and everything, and I was told, no, we're not voting, you need to do this.
I was out sick that day,
You need
and
to
we didn't
do
get the
this
list. I didn't-
before, and we'll work in good faith, and you've proven
That's
that
not actually true.
we do not work in
No,
We
good
it's
faith.
agreed
not.
on certain
Scott,
size
yeah,
trees, so
yeah.
you've come in and changed that fact. So things have changed from your side as well.
And the certificate of compliance, you didn't ask for in this way at the last meeting either, so that's,
Because I was asking to work in a resource area. So
mean,
I'm not asking to work in I'm not asking to work in the resource area, I'm volunteering to work in the resource area.
Put it this way, Scott. Doing that work in the resource area will benefit you as much as it will us, because if I were buying a house there and looking at the mess that's in behind it, the way it is now, I don't think I'd buy a house in that condition.
It's gonna
So-
get worse.
So the work in the resource area will be a benefit to you as well as to us.
And I want to do the work in the resource area.
Okay,
I'm-
so, but I can't, in good faith, say, okay, Scott, I trust you to maintain the trees, but there's no way that we can do that. When every other order of conditions, it's a monitoring of at least 2 years, 2 growing seasons, to make sure that the trees and plants and whatever take and are alive. If we say, just carte blanche, go ahead and do it, and we won't worry about it, and they all die, well, you know, we'd be defeating our own purpose, so.
Okay.
I mean, even your
Yeah, I
consultant
understand
wrote
that. If we agree to what we're doing and we get a partial, once it's complete, and then I'll agree to go through the 2 growing seasons before I get the full, if that's agreeable.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a proposal here, seeing that this is a continued public hearing, that we consider closing it. And secondly, with this latest agreement, also allow him to start working on the restoration and planting ASAP, even though the order conditions aren't written up. But to get this going, because by the time an order is put together, it could be towards the end of November, and everything's defeated.
Yep.
At least he makes a good faith effort. He has a landscaper, and with the available stock they can get, it may not be the
And-
largest, but the thing is that he does take a chance that the deer eat it down anyways, and rabbits.
But what about larger trees and having equipment in there? Small equipment, not.
Yeah, all equipment, all the better to get the job done.
Once again, I don't know what's available. So how do we handle something like that and close the hearing?
Jane, do you have a person that you can recommend that might be able to help find the right size trees?
Like I said, I looked it up, and the one in Northborough,
Has them?
it's Bingham, had them, and they had a list of what they had, and I have it in my computer someplace, but I don't have it right here.
Bigelow's is big too.
What's that?
Bigelow's is huge. Is it, I think?
Bigelow, it's Bigelow, that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Sylvain said they had the trees too, but when it comes down to, they're spoken for, they're this, they don't have, there may be a few larger trees available, and again, I specifically red oak, red maple. So I didn't check any other species, or the landscaper didn't check any other species. So I don't know that. But once again, my desire is I would like to close the hearing, so how do we get to, we're not specifically, this is the only thing, because those trees are being held for me right now that I have listed here, so I know that I can do that. Beyond that, it's back to that he said, she said, because I can't guarantee
Well,
anything.
this says for Bigelow, Acer rubrum, red maple, number 1, number 1 plus, and number 5. CG, whatever that is. There are 811, 196, and 20 of those 3 different varieties, and I can't tell you what it is right this second, but this is Bigelow Nurseries. They've got all of these things listed in their inventory. And then for red oaks, you could probably do white oaks too, as long as they're not swamp.
So, I would, okay, I guess my only problem, okay, if we close the hearing, that means no new information comes in or goes out or whatever. We're basically locked in with what we've got. Is that correct, Jane?
Yeah, but it's been a moving target. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's-
he's not submitting within the 4 days to give us a chance to review things.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk a blue streak, he and I think we have something going, figured something out, and then it falls flat.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get any more information. He needs to be able to start doing this. Okay, Quercus rubra, product 1, number 5, and 3.5-inch B and B. They get 3 and 5, that's all. But they have they do have red oaks there, B&Bs, and they also have it, white oaks.
All right.
And, yeah, so I mean, I don't know what to tell you, Bob.
Okay, all
I'm-
right, can we modify his thing? Fall 2021, 40 trees, without being specific,
40 native trees.
40 native trees. Can we get sizes?
Well, it says 40 red oaks
Yeah.
and 20 red maples, so you're just saying 40 altogether?
Well, he's
No, 20 of each. There's a 40 red oak,
40
20 of each. And
40 red oak and red
Oh, oh,
maple,
oh,
20
oh.
of each. So,
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah, it's
okay.
just worded a little, I mean, you were mentioning, you said, you meant 40 trees,
yes,
20 red oak, 20 red maple. That's
Yeah.
what you meant, right?
yeah.
so why don't we just say 40 trees,
For 40 native trees.
okay?
Oaks and maples, sassafras, native trees that are in the same area, obviously. And beech trees you don't want because they probably will die, but I mean, if they want beech trees,
And, okay, and we don't necessarily 3 to 5 feet. We can, larger trees and using,
I'd say no smaller than 3 to 5 feet.
yeah,
Larger trees are preferred.
yeah.
And if he does have larger trees, then he can cut them back.
And also, he can,
No, I don't mean that. I mean the number.
But we're not agreeing on anything. We're leaving here with an open-ended, which was exactly what I was thinking as the discussion is going on. We were 20 larger trees, and I doubled it because I knew I couldn't get the larger trees. So I said, I'm going to double the amount because of that.
Yeah.
So now, okay, what is, what's
Yeah, well,
the
I'm-
trade-off?
okay. See, our problem, Scott, is.
I
if we-
understand.
If we close it, there's no new information, so I'm trying to get
And,
it
yeah.
kind of ambiguous, but
But
get
not-
something in there so that we can close it, but have something that is valid for both of us.
Okay.
And you are asking for a lot of, things that most people don't ask for. And we require the 4 days beforehand. And I mean, I'm just pointing these out. I don't want to hit you over the head with them, but I didn't even get a chance to look at this yet. I didn't realize that you changed it so.
I responded to your email about meeting to get together about
Yeah,
this.
you said you're flexible, and do you know how many emails I get? It got buried.
And then today I got it and I wasn't available.
Right,
So.
right, and so it goes.
I made the effort.
So,
Just to let you know, there used to be some white oaks growing on that site too. So besides,
I think
Pines and red
there
oaks.
were several white oaks.
yeah,
Yeah, I'd say red oak, white oak, red maple.
just, okay, 40, let's say
40 native trees.
40 native trees planted around, minimum size would be 3 to 5 feet. That would be minimum size. Larger ones will be
preferred.
preferred, and if you use the larger ones, understanding that you would need some
Small equipment.
small equipment. I won't say large equipment, but small equipment for planting. Is that agreeable?
Except for if I can get larger trees, do we make a concession on the number of trees?
Yes,
And how do we do that? That's what I
Yeah.
was saying.
Approximately 40?
we don't know what you can get.
Well, we were talking 30, we agreed to 30 last.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, I've been saying 20, but you're correct.
We agreed to 30,
agreed to
we agreed to 30 being large trees.
Yeah. Okay, why don't we say approximately 40, and
Dependent on sizes.
depend upon size.
Depending upon size and availability,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's reasonable.
I mean, do you want to put in there that to be confirmed by Jane?
Probably.
Well, someone's going to determine the spacing and where they should go, right?
Yeah.
Well, his landscaper should know, and he wants to have
Who-
most of them at the bottom
Who
of
is
the
your
slope.
landscaper, by the way,
landscapers
Scott?
familiar
Is it
with-
a local?
Yeah, John Leineck.
Plus you had that restoration plan that was proposed by the doctor that gives a
Dr.
spacing.
Rockwood?
Yeah, he just gave a spacing thing on it
gives
without
an
actual.
idea.
Yeah, my original idea, I said, well, if we're actually restoring, obviously we can't get too close because there'll just be a root system and
Yeah.
everything. But if we, okay, there was a tree, let's put one here, let's put one here. I'm in agreement with that wording. That's fine with me.
Okay.
So all work shall be performed by hand, or small machinery, planting trees with small machinery.
Yep.
Planting trees with small machinery is acceptable.
Yep.
We don't need to spell out what small means, do we?
What's that?
We don't need to spell out what small
No,
means, do we?
no.
Yeah, also, Scott, it was raining all last week. So that cut our time down, too.
Yeah. Okay. so-
Actually made me have a lot of time because it was raining all last week. It was a
Well,
bad week at work.
then you should have said, I can come in and meet with you, because it's raining. I'm not going to go out to the site and meet with you, though, in the rain, because I'm a wuss.
Now, have you got that written down to your satisfaction? Just,
Okay,
PCOs.
issue a partial certificate of
Okay.
compliance. Would you put in some bounds? Can you put in bounds so that the next people don't go and do this, too?
Bob,
Please?
adding anything more to that, or monitoring wood chip removal?
well,
Wood chips, or?
You don't
No.
mean real boards, you mean put those posts in?
Anything, just to let people know that that's there, and so that they don't say, well, I didn't know.
Like a survey is bound, is what I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. But usually
And
they have a
Bill, and
little-
actually, Bill from Bay Colony has a plaque, so he had him,
Right.
yeah,
That
right.
it-
could only
Plaque's made
get
up.
50, and he didn't need 50 or something, so he has a whole handful of them over there.
Okay.
I originally, on the previous plan that I said that we could throw out, there would be 4 that were proposed in that area, and there were 2 additional that would have been talking about the rear area that is out of place, so I would be agreeable to put in those 4 bounds that were proposed on the first plan.
Okay.
with
The
with
ones that were proposed on the first plan were within that 20-foot, it had an
Oh, so we'll
extended,
put them on 100 foot.
what?
I'll put 4 on the 100 foot.
Okay. At the top of each bump?
We just kind of had them spaced out evenly, I believe, in the area of, you know, kind of where the house was, where it made sense.
I think if you put one at the top of each bump, you got a bump and a bump and a bump, and then you stick one towards the back as well, in the middle of,
So 3 bumps, 4 bumps?
yeah, you can come see my picture, it's pretty.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. That's fine. We'll make that number 7.
Yep.
Yep.
It'd be nice if I could mention the name of the landscaper in here, so that we have somebody who is accountable, besides you, since you want to get this
I
partial.
think no matter what, it's ultimately gonna fall back on me, though, because
If we
I'm
give
the
you
person
partial.
that's gonna be responsible to get that certificate of compliance.
Well, if we give you a partial and then the bank accepts that and you have a buyer, are you going to really want to go back and say, that it will be their responsibility to get a complete certificate at that point?
In the past, I've had holdbacks for that certificate. So if I want my holdback
Holdbacks.
money,
From the buyer.
I have to provide
Buyer?
the,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Then can I specify by a professional landscaper? Planted and monitored by a professional landscaper.
Yes.
So plant trees with small machinery is acceptable, or larger machinery that is stationed outside of the 100-foot. How's that?
Yeah, I don't think, there's nothing that can't be done with a small excavator.
Little Bobcat type of thing?
Yeah, no, just a small mini excavator.
Like a Bobcat?
Huh?
Like a Bobcat small?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
done
like,
by hand is the-
have you seen mine that I have that you see on my jobs and whatnot? That can handle digging a hole for trees and stuff like that. That's,
The one that I was leaning against and got dirty? That was pretty big.
no, that's a big one.
Okay.
Okay. Dave just brought up a good point. Since we're allowing that, so we probably eliminate number 5.
Yes.
Well, some work should be done by hand.
Yes,
The-
some work should be, but,
Oh, so invasives by hand.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's already specified in number 1.
All right. So basically at 5, say, it's agreeable that work can be performed.
By hand or with a
planting
small
trees
machinery.
with,
Yeah.
what?
By hand or with the small machinery.
By hand
Or s-
or with small machinery.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, and I think, you don't want to do that to remove invasives. That's going to be too invasive
Yeah.
to do that with a machine.
Yeah, you really can't. You'll have to have some sort of a
Yeah,
digger,
Yeah,
but
you'd have to really,
our landscaper at the Lane property uses a pitchfork, and she loosens the soil and jumps up and down and shakes out the roots, and life is good.
a lot of it, with the landscaper, because you wanted to try to figure out what kind of labor was involved in, a lot of them pulled out pretty easily, so.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay. But no herbicides?
Huh?
No herbicides or chemicals?
Nope.
So that sort of thing would go into your order of conditions?
Yeah.
And I can draft that thing up and send it to you to follow.
Okay.
I'll draft it up, send it to the commission. If they have any comments, they can send it back to me, back to me separately. And let's see, if we close the hearing tonight, the next meeting isn't for 4 weeks? You'd
Yeah,
have to
the
give us a
29th.
waiver of the 21-day requirement.
Okay.
But, so you'd have to give that to us in writing just to cover our tails, both of us. But, so I will draft up the bylaw order of conditions with our usual conditions. They're all boilerplate. And I've got a whole bunch of boilerplates for the restoration area.
It just won't be
Information.
signed. It just won't be signed.
It just won't be signed, and usually we require some sort of a professional botanist or something to oversight. We can say something about professional landscaper.
Number 4.
Monitored and planted by a professional landscaper. But it would just be the same stuff we always write in there,
Okay.
Hold on,
literally
Jay.
boilerplate.
One
What?
other thing, Bob.
What, wood chips,
Yeah, we agree.
you
Maybe kick them around a little bit, but,
agree to leave them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
because he said they weren't deep. There really
We
weren't any
can
pockets of
say
deep
that
stuff?
in the meeting.
I was kind of surprised myself. I was like, almost immediately, in most of the places, I was into pine needles that were there.
Oh.
Because we were talking about that with the landscaper, and that's why I was doing it, because we were trying to review, and,
Oh, gotcha, all right.
and once again, I'm looking around, and every place where I went, there was, a couple of princess pines, a little maple tree, a little oak tree, something growing in there.
There were some good things, but it
Yeah,
did look like those had maybe smothered out the understory of, the blueberries, low bush blueberries and huckleberries, which that's mostly what was growing in there, I think. The natives, anyway. And sweet pepper.
Yeah, I didn't uncover anything that looked like it had got smothered, but it's not like I did a lot of area either. I was just kind of curious, checking to see how deep
Yeah,
it was.
for my place, I would want to go and get out there with one of those heavy rakes and just pull that stuff all off to the side or something, just to see what would come up, but whatever.
Okay. So have you got it written down?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see, for one is the same. 2, fall of 2021, approximately 40 native trees.
Shall be
Maybe I'll put
planted.
including, red
Yeah.
and white oaks and red maples.
Trees shall range, Size.
Shall be planted, no 20 of each thing, which have a minimum size of 3 to 5 feet.
By a
Larger trees are
professional.
preferred. A smaller quantity of larger trees would be preferred. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, forget about the larger trees. If the guy's gonna have to make sure that the deer don't eat all of the trees, then what do I care? Really? If you can get larger trees, let me know, and we can make a deal. How's that?
Okay.
that's the reason why I said approximately, okay.
Approximately, yes. Disturbed areas shall be monitored through the winter, spring, summer, 2000, invasive plants is warranted. 4, wood chips shall not be removed if they're, okay. 5,
Whoa. On number 3, we're not doing it for 2 years? Monitoring?
Yeah, we are.
and 22.
That's not what that says.
It says disturbed areas will be monitored through winter, spring, and summer 21 and 22.
21 is already passed.
Yeah, 21's already passed.
Yeah, it should be 22,
Oh,
should be 2 years, that's not 2 years.
Good point.
So by November of '23?
And it
shall
skips
be
the fall.
monitored after planting. This is what I would normally put, planting.
Going to,
Disturbed areas shall be monitored for 2 years. How's that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
For 2 years. And I got language that says it's 75% blah, blah, blah. Like I said, just the normal language. Invasive shall be removed as warranted during that time. Wood chips shall not be removed as they're blah, blah, blah. That's good. So
and a partial certificate on 6.
that's number 6.
Yep,
The commission is, I think it's got to say if warranted, if work is
Yes.
complete.
Accepted.
Well, he said after work is completed. This fall, Scott, really? We want to see that the stuff lives for at least to the spring.
You're not issuing a full, so ultimately I want the full,
Yeah, we still have the 2 years to monitor it, right?
Yes.
What does that make?
and the work is done. And one thing is, we know, other than deer eating them, we're not gonna lose any trees over the winter. They're basically gonna be dormant at the time, by the time they get
Oh,
planted.
they'll eat them. No, the deer love the
No, I'm
buds.
saying that, other than them
Oh,
eating
other than,
them.
okay, yeah. Okay. Commission is agreeable to, how about that? Issuing a partial. Commission is agreeable to issuing a partial if the work is completed after the work is completed,
All 21.
successfully completed, or
Yep.
completed as promised?
Described, yeah.
It's
As
described.
this-
As described. Thank you, that's better. I'm losing my brain. It's getting late, you can tell.
You're right.
Let's see.
Number 7 was bounds.
The bounds.
Yeah,
And I'm going to say planted and monitored by professional landscaper. Structures will be monitored. Yeah, so that'll be like up near 3. Planted and monitored by professional landscaper, or landscape professional, whatever.
So be planted and monitored.
No herbicide shall be used. And that will say, that's basically what it's going to say in the order, because that's a boilerplate as well, Scott.
Okay.
But you understand, no herbicides, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. I think we've got it. Do you want to look at my scribbles?
I've been writing it down with you, so I think I'm good.
Okay.
All right.
So then, in theory, you can, do you want to say with placement with the approval of the agent or something like that?
Yep.
Planted and monitored, placement, planting locations. Per agent.
Planting
approval.
location approved by agent?
Yeah. And Scott, if you're gonna, a native plant is a native plant, just make sure it's a native plant. Get
Okay.
my guidelines for wetland restoration, or
Yeah, I was
Restoration
I was
guidelines.
looking at it and during the last,
okay, good, because the one that's
Yeah.
online, it seems I put it in all sorts of silly places, so Diana was trying to replace that with the newer version, and we keep finding more. So if you look on the, where was the place that you put it, for sure? Was it applications?
Yeah, under application.
Under applications, that's the version that's got the most up-to-date information. I just tweak it every so often when I find some other nursery or resource type of thing. So it has the updated resources in it. Okay, guys, that sounds good.
So, Bob, the commission members, if we close the continued hearing, I think we should consider that by the time it takes to put the orders together and us to review them and eventually sign them off, that we allow Scott to actually start buying the plants and start working on restore them, providing he meets with Jane about the restoration.
According to this, I'd say go for it immediately, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll make it a priority to get this thing together, and the commission never has any kind of comments, so it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think based on discussions with the landscaper that it can happen fairly quickly because it's in a good spot for him. He hasn't started fall cleanups yet, so he said it's actually a good time that
Okay.
before he gets into fall cleanups, because then they're busy doing that stuff, so.
Okay.
All right.
And like I said, I'm gonna look at the option of the trees, but those trees are on hold for me at Sylvain, so I know I can, at a minimum, get
Now,
those
what's the
trees.
name of that place again?
Sylvain in Westport. It's on your list of preferred native plant places.
It is. See, I've never been there. I just was going by what was recommended. In where is it?
Westport.
Westport.
You need like a golf cart to get around. The place is so big. It's
Really?
incredible how
I
big it
definitely
is.
need to go.
Hmm.
Yeah, Weston nurseries used to be like that. They're all really kind of small now.
All right. You
Okay,
all
so you've
set?
put aside
I'm
40 3 to 5 foot trees, right? Oh, wow. And for
Someone
future
wanna
reference,
Make a motion
the-
to close the hearing.
The other place is good, too.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing on 16 Garnett Spillane Road. NOI filing 2021-1.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it with the condition that Scott waives, provides written authority to waive the 21 days that Jane mentioned about.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's a form that's online. You just check off the boxes and say,
Okay. Email it is good. Okay.
email's fine.
Discussion? All in-
Should we add that it's just going to incorporate Jane's notes from this discussion?
Yeah, as
Right.
discussed. I'd say that to close it and then draft an order of conditions as
Authorized,
discussed
yeah.
during the meeting.
Yep. Any other discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All righty.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
I-
We have a continuation for NOI 157-609, 28 Camp Road. The applicant has requested a continuance to the 29th. Somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to continue NOI 157-609.
Here, second.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Do I hear another motion? Do you have anything else urgent?
I don't have anything else that's urgent, but I would really like you all to think about the important things that we need policies and, you know, for. Either that incorporate them into the regulations, but the hunting discussion, I want to talk about because Bill Keegan asked that we revisit this. And the lakefront lot development, redevelopment requirements. Basically, it's everything that you have required in the past and guidelines for people going forward, because an abutter to one of these properties said, there's nothing that tells us what we can or can't do at the lakefront. And so I think having clear, concise list is really important, especially since if a bylaw order is appealed, it's reviewed under certiorari, which is the review of the record. And the main way of that being, the appeal being awarded is if the commission is arbitrary and capricious in their decision-making. So in order not to be arbitrary and capricious, you really need to have standard steps that you follow and requirements of everyone. And then, of course, the other one, the, what was the other one? I think it was land clearing. Encroachments, yes. So, I mean, there are a lot of things we really should nail down so that we're not being wishy-washy and not knowing what to do. So. Rah-rah, it's a spoon bar. Let's get out of here.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn the hearing.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.